All right, good morning. Let's take a look at what's going on. We've got quite a few things with Bitcoin to consider. The halving is 2 days away, a little less than 2 days away at this point. But what we are really looking at, that probably from the TA perspective most concerning, is are we forming a range or are we starting some sort of ascending uh, range? So what we're really looking at, let's go to the 1 day chart here, just a little bit more obvious. What we are looking at right now is this potential range, sideways range. And we've talked about this in the videos before. Something like this being the potential. Now, the other option that we have is some downward range. Not really going to take a lot of time to draw this accurately, but something like that where the bottom also goes a little bit lower. Let's copy this one. Like same thing. It's pretty similar. Um, Something like this. Let's see. We could also use closes on this as well, but really, whatever range we have, it's not really. If it were to go down, it's not going to go down significantly quickly. One area I have highlighted on the daily watch was if the daily trend switches start coming up, I could see us quickly tagging this intersection on the moving averages. A lot of these moving average intersections tend to attract price to it because you have multiple indicators pointing to the same area. And in this case, those would be pointing to potential resistance since it's below both already. Take a look at the daily indicators. So yeah, we did get a daily momentum shift, and it looks like the RSI is probably going to get one too. I'm not really particularly sold on this being a longer term trend change as opposed to maybe a shorter term. Even if we do bounce up, I do expect it to get swatted down, even with the halving coming up. I think what we can see and what I've experienced in the past with the halving is that price usually increases right up to it, and then it's been a sell the news event. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, excuse me, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to have this time around as well. But from past experience, it's kind of what's happened. So, I'll show you what I kind of expected, and I shared this in a tweet the other day. As well, I said if the daily momentum shifts, we would probably come up towards this area in the circle, then come back down towards the 100 day. Now we could very well wick below that. What we do from here is going to depend a little bit more on where we are on the week indicators and such. But obviously, you got about two options here, well, three. Continue down that 200 down here, can range a bit more, and then eventually go up or down, or you get the straight bounce off of it up to the top of the range and break out. So those are the kind of possibilities that I'm looking at right now. And again, this all kind of goes back to where are we with the indicators on the weekly time frame. But let's go ahead and start with the monthly and drill in. We've been talking about this. The monthly kind of looks a little bit concerning because we do have potential topping on the stochastic advanced indicator where we are weighting multiple stochastic indicators. Pointing down right now, we've got 12 days left in the month, but we are riding the upper bands. And if you watch the prior live, you know that happened in the past, something like this on the chart. Go back to logarithmic. Well, take that back. Something like this on the chart on the monthly, where we came down into the bands, still closed above it, and continued to ride up. So that's why this is a little bit confusing time right now, just because we are nearly overbought. We are towards the top of the Bollinger Bands, so there is still room to continue riding them up. We're not closing significantly below them, and trend is changing. So it's just kind of a tough spot to make a decision on where to go. But if I had to lean anywhere, I would lean towards consolidation, as I've been saying. Let's take a look at the weekly and see how that kind of compares. So yeah, we've been mentioning consolidation on the weekly for some time. I would not be shocked if we don't come down to the mid band on the weekly. That seems perfectly reasonable to expect. That would be somewhere around 55K. Let's take a look at where that would be on the daily. Well, before I move to the daily, you can just look at the downward trend on the stochastic advanced and the downward trend on the RSI. On the daily, 100 moving average is around 56. So the scenario that I laid out earlier where we come up and then go down, what I would like to see is a wick down to around 55 and to bounce up from there. That would be perfect for the weekly structure, and it could potentially lead us into an excellent May and post-halving price action. I think almost everyone is pretty unanimously agreeing that the market isn't going to be over anytime soon. So we're looking for ways in which we can time the TA correctly to get a entry. Now, I have been sharing on X that I think we may have hit the bottom of the range. I shared that when this was happening. I believe yesterday I did share that things were looking pretty ugly around back here. Like price is climbing nicely right now. Let's see, where was that? It was around and through here that things were looking a little bit ugly on the chart, and we continued to dump. And then later that day, I said we might have set the bottom for the range, considering this was the previous low back earlier in the range that I showed with you moments ago. So that's something to keep an eye on. And again, if you're not following me, I highly suggest you do. I share what I believe are important things. We'll talk about these flows and such later. Another thing to look at here. Here we go. This is what I shared yesterday. The daily momentum didn't change, what I was talking about. And the 4-hour rejected on the mid band after the bull div looks ugly at the moment. So let's go to that 4-hour chart. This was yesterday when I said things were looking ugly. The 4-hour, we had kind of a bull div on the RSI. It kind of confirmed when it closed here, but it failed to capture the mid band. So me, when I saw this around here, it was like, okay, we're definitely looking ugly. I expect it to go down, but it was one of those situations where we're already towards the bottom of the range. Zoom out, we were already towards the bottom of this range, so I wouldn't have put much stock into it, and I would have looked for areas to catch a bid. But it was kind of a no man's land for a trade because you're pretty far along in the range, and things were looking bad. Wasn't a lot of support there other than just the range. So I'm still not convinced this holds up over time, but we will. That is kind of where I was at yesterday. Take a look at that. Pretty much exactly where I told you when we were looking at the chart a moment ago, and it just took off down from there. And that's stochastic weight. A lot of the reason why I was very confident that it was going to come down. All right, let's go back to 15th and take a look at what we've got going on there. And this is where I did share. I figured if the daily momentum changed, we could get up to that intersection before we head back down. Pretty busy on the 16th. Okay, so there was the last live. Let's see what we got going on after that. I was watching for a bull div on the 4-hour. We already kind of talked about that. But the Wolf of All Street, Mr. Scott Melker, he does a really good job of sharing the divergences on the RSI. Definitely worth the follow when it's concerned to that particular TA. He's good at calling those out. Another thing that's pretty important is the Hong Kong ETFs. So those are going live at the end of the month. We know they've been approved, But it was interesting to me to hear that they were going live, I believe, on the 30th of April. So once they go live, then those flows into those ETFs can contribute to price of Bitcoin on the spot. Particularly concerning was the housing starts. So way less houses being built, which isn't really good for home prices in the short term, and it's just not a good indication of the economy in general. And here there were 30 fund managers who declared ownership in the BlackRock ETF, which is quite a few, and these filings aren't even fully due yet, so there's still going to be a lot more that show up. Uh, Income Sharks, again, one that I really enjoy to follow, sharing their range in the SPX. This was something where if we looked at the SPX more, it would have been obvious. I don't really pay too much attention to it, but it was in a pretty tight range going up, and it broke down out of that, retested it, and got swatted down. So definitely, when the SPX doesn't do well, it's as if the whole market isn't doing well. So it can bleed into crypto, and it has in the past time with that particular correlation. Again, Scott Melker calling out that bull div, it confirmed, but honestly, it was at the end. Like I said, we saw the reaction to the 4-hour Bollinger Band, the mid band. Worth noting, I said, but being patient. GBTC, oh man, that thing is just killing us. They are selling off constantly hundreds of millions. Terrible, and we're less than 500 blocks to the halving. That's definitely to know. On the 16th, ARK had an out. That was disappointing. And we talked a bit about potentially making A on the IBIT chart, looking at the 4-day or the 4-hour and the 1-day, and how it was potentially at a moving average support. Let's drill into that just a little bit, and let's see how that is actually pretty interesting. Okay, so it lost that moving average, but it quickly recovered, and it looks like it's going to try and reclaim. What I would be concerned about is we're still early in the day, and it has room to still close below and still have lost the moving average. So even though we're trading decently above that moving average right now, it doesn't really mean much. But this is a 4-hour chart, so it's not too critical. The daily chart. Okay, kind of the same thing here. It's going to be interesting because for a while we looked at futures PA and it worked for a while. And it, um, looking at the spot ETFs, it's going to be hard to say. It's kind of out in no man's land. But what I do enjoy looking at is my indicator appears to be doing a very good job of looking at actual momentum changes. So if we do close up nicely today, we could go up a little while at least, and we can look for hopefully potential change in that RSI trend. So, all right, let's go back and look at the rest of these updates that I had posted. This one was pretty interesting. So Litecoin, so for a long time, Litecoin has kind of told us top. It breaks out and it's outperforming everything. It's like it's the end of the current period. It's like a signal to everyone that we're done. It's just funny because it happens to work out that way. But alternatively, maybe it could be one of the first to bottom. So let's look at Litecoin. It hit down around its 200 moving average. It already started its momentum shift up there. And looking at the RSI, it has Litecoin on the go. It could have potentially set a bottom. It's even potentially looking at the RSI trend change. Litecoin could be leading right now compared to some of the others. Even though it did drop off huge, these are the things we're looking at is how altcoins kind of respond to their own TA and whether those are generally still bullish or not. All of these wicks and bouncing off of this, really good. Again, there's a lot going on today with moving averages and resistance. We're early in the day, so hopefully we continue to close high, but there's still room for this to be an ugly day if we start selling off in the afternoon. Even though things look good now, it could still be very ugly by the afternoon. As you see, we sold back above the 100 there on Litecoin. And we've got a bullish engulfing candle right now on Bitcoin, which is great. But we've got some more potential resistance up ahead. Talked about that one down there, but this one was very interesting. CRG. This was 23 hours ago. This was something I noted was worth watching. And it really is, because you see shorts, these are shorts, were increasing greatly at an expanding rate as price was dropping. So if you paid attention when we were going up in price, you would notice that when longs would get extremely numerous, voluminous, there would often be a correction. So this was yesterday. We're looking at all the shorts increasing while prices already dropped significantly. That just kind of begs for a correction. Definitely worth looking. And I also noted that the bottom so far today would make a nice bottom for a sideways range. Again, we talked about that. There's our sideways range. That bottom yesterday, perfect for the sideways range. We're still in it. And this was just interesting and something to keep an eye on. The International Monetary Foundation, I believe, has warned the U.S. that its massive fiscal deficits have stoked inflation and pose significant risk for the global economy. So I didn't really look into the context on why they were saying this, whether they were having some sort of meeting, but definitely very interesting with all of the handouts as far as aid to other countries. And we we looked at Mr. 100 yesterday buying, I believe it was 700 Bitcoin just yesterday, just yesterday alone. And I think it would be just hilarious if we found out that all of these billions and billions that we're giving Ukraine that seem astronomical in regards to what they're actually doing were just funds obfuscated in order to buy Bitcoin for either Ukraine or America or some other nation state. Hopefully, in this case for me, it would be America. We'll see. Again, I think the amount of money they're handing out to Ukraine and Israel and these other countries is completely irrational based on their needs. So, uh, what is going on with that? It just doesn't make sense. Again, ARK had a much bigger outflow yesterday. That's a concerning trend. ARK has been pretty good at having relatively low numbers, and they had an outflow the day before, and this one's huge. GBTC back up to 133 million, and then right, I believe after I posted we were going live, I saw this where Grayscale just transferred another 3,000 or so Bitcoin worth over 200 million to Coinbase. So probably more outflows from them today, but based on the price, I imagine as of right now we can expect some pretty significant inflows on the BlackRock stuff. I did. Okay, so let's zoom in. Let's see how we're doing right now with the short-term prices bouncing really well on the 4-hour. I would look for the top Bollinger Band as an area where price kind of cools down. It looks like we're pumping pretty good at the moment. So let's see, that'll probably come down. We probably won't hit it this hour. So probably somewhere around 65. Look at the 1 hour and see if that kind of has any correlation. 65. Okay, I could see us going up all the way to the 200 on the 1 hour if we close above the 100 here, and then wick back down as part of the 4-hour candle. So if I wanted a quick short, I'd be putting up bids or ask here around the 200 on the 1 hour today. That's where I would be. Let's take a look at the 15-minute. Get a brief consolidation, but it has retaken its 200. It could start trending up for a little while. Nice. 5-minute chart. very similar. There does appear to be a divergence here on my indicator and also on the RSI, so that also kind of tells you to probably consolidate for a little while. And the 1 minute chart, so this would have been perfect. This is exactly how I would have played it. So if you look at the 5 minute chart, go back again, there's that divergence from back here on a 5 minute chart. And this kind of, the number of candles between these and the price difference is pretty ideal for divergence that I'm looking for. Take a look at the 1 minute chart. We even have a 1 minute divergence on this indicator here. That would have been probably about the perfect time to consider looking for on a 1 minute chart, but I wouldn't. All right, let's take a look back at the daily. Again, we're in this range, sideways or downward sloping, however you want to look at it. We are in a range. We'll break up out of this. It could very well stay sideways for a while. There's a lot of ways you can draw this. It's not necessarily perfectly how you should draw it, but your kind of idea. And who knows how long we can stay kind of sideways here before we finally break out either direction. I tend to lean breaking up eventually, especially after the halving. But again, I do believe I have made the case for a potential downward channel as well. I don't know where you would draw these, but something like this, and wider perhaps. And I know that line very, giving you all an idea of what we could potentially expect. And another reason why I wasn't on shorting here, even though the market looks terrible. That's the way it always looks when you're bottom. Bottoms always look awful until you see they've been bought. So it takes a lot of braveness, I should say, to be able to bid a bottom because it looks awful every time. Whenever that bottom is coming, everything on the chart just looks terrible, feels awful, but it's one of those times where you don't hit buy now, you're missing. But again, you don't know it's the bottom until afterward. But I am watching this area particularly closely. I'm not sure we go below the 100, but it is an area I'm watching. We have tested it before, so I do think good test of 100-day would be good. But going back on previous cycles, when you're bullish, you don't usually touch the 100-day moving average. Really well above the 200-day, and often you don't even touch the 100-day. So you go back here. This is just before the halving, I think. 20. No, the halving was back here. So around June of 2020, I believe. Okay. Something like that having occurred, and we just kind of went sideways for a while. I believe there's a little bit more interest and there's going to be more volatility right now, but something to keep an eye on. But we didn't touch the 100 after the halving. But if you consider that a touch once, and then I consider this one big touch since it all kind of consolidated around there as two, and then we never came close to the 100-day after that halving. Let's go back to 2017. And again, this parabolic move also, this did not touch the 100-day. That was that little echo bubble after 2017. 2017, we did. We actually lost the 100 on that. And I remember this was the one that was really scary for people because they thought the market was over at that particular point. But yeah, we touched it once, twice there. So this particular bull market looks very similar to what we're dealing with now. 2017 market, 2016, 17 looks pretty similar to what we're dealing with now. Had a ribbon for a very long time, and honestly, we could be very much in the area as far as the market is concerned. How long it ran up after that? I mean, this chart looks very similar to what we're looking at right now, correct? Broke under, had this kind of downward cross under here, bounced a little bit, came back down. It'll be interesting to see if we see something like this the next few weeks. I would not be surprised, but definitely, I think if we go down to the 200-day, it'll be a precedent for sure if we were to continue to remain bullish. So I'm definitely hoping we don't go all the way down to the 200, but it doesn't happen until it happens. See the parallels we just showed, that cross under, bounced just a little bit, shot down under the 100. Ideally, I would look for bids around 53, 54, because I believe this is level of support if this range were to break that we would go down to. So if we were to have a scenario like that 2016-17 cycle and it does come down wrong, it does come down below the 100 over the next few days, quick crash, quick buying, quick buying, quick buying. That is exactly what I would look for if we lose that one, in my opinion. And then you set like kind of a new range, hopefully take off. But again, we're kind of in the middle of everything right now, so I don't really have a lot of trade ideas other than that 1 hour and 4 hour at the moment. Looking on the 1 hour to hopefully come up to the 200 moving average, which on the 4 hour is roughly near the top of the volume. If there's anywhere I think you might have a chance to get a quick short in today. Otherwise, I'm not really looking towards much out there. But I think I'm going to call that for this video today. I'm still working on trying to get time to do the volume candles, the other new features on TradingView, making videos for those. So I appreciate you coming by, watching the live, or watching it on demand. That means a lot to me. So please like and subscribe. I'm going to continue to try and do the lives as much as I can, and try to start making these videos again this time permits. It's been pretty hectic, but I appreciate your patience. I want to say thank you again. Have a good day, everyone.